few months ago, one of the most popular videos on YouTube was of all those creators moving to Davinci Resolve. I watched it and I even downloaded Davinci and I opened it on the first day. And I was like, whoa, what the flip is this? And I walked away. I went back to Premiere. Ever since I started editing professionally since a year ago, the first program that I used was Final Cut because that's what I use for YouTube. Final Cut for me is probably the easiest thing that you can pick up and just get into it. And it's so robust, it's so easy, especially like the multicam edits and podcasts and stuff like that. But that was until I started working professionally, and then you have to send XML files and you have to send audio files and you have to do all these other things and collaborations, and you realize, okay, Final Cut might not be the easiest tool out there to use for filmmaking. Then that forced me to move over to Premiere. What I liked about Premiere was you can make a video, you can do your post-edit audio workflow in Adobe Audition, and then you have access to the Adobe suite. So for a while, I was fine with Adobe. I was fine with Adobe Premiere, but for all this, I was mainly just editing videos from my Sony FX3 or from the A7 IV or from, those type of cameras, and that worked well. To be honest with you, I was like, oh, I like Premiere. I think I'm a Premiere editor now, and a lot of tutorials. I've done a lot of things. Like I started learning Premiere a long time ago, before it was even on Creative Cloud. You went back in the day when you'd get the torrent version. But fast forward to now, one thing, I've been using Premiere until today. Today might finally be this video that you're watching. I'm probably editing it on Davinci Resolve. And part of the reason is I've been contemplating moving to the Avid, but because I live in Vancouver and people don't necessarily use the Avid, the most professional software people use here is Davinci Resolve. And the only major reason that I'm doing this is because I cannot deal with Premiere crashing. Professionally as an editor, my work has gotten bigger and bigger as the clients get bigger and bigger and the projects get bigger and bigger. The type of footage that I'm working with is different. Right now, I'm working on I think it's the Red Raptor footage that I'm working on. And we're talking about 4 terabytes for a 10-minute shot. And what's been happening with Premiere is whenever I open the footage, whenever I try to go through it through the media browser just to see what type of footage you have, Premiere crashes. And it's so humiliating when you're sitting in front of client and you're like, oh yeah, let's check. The client is like, oh, there's a shot that I would like you to check out on the hard drive. And then you go to the hard drive and then your system crashes. You're like, damn. So I've been humiliated enough until one time the client was like, why don't you move to Davinci Resolve? The color is working this. Why don't you? And I'm like, man, it terrifies me. But ultimately would you rather be terrified or have a stable system? And for me, if I move to Davinci and it keeps crashing, then I may move to Avid because I'm told Avid doesn't crash. But as a filmmaker, as an editor, as somebody in the business, these softwares, man, they're just tools, and you need a tool that's efficient to work at that time. So when I saw those videos popping up back in the day, I was like, I'm not moving. When Peter McKinnon moved, I was like, it might be something there. But one major reason I was just like, nah, I'm not moving. I'll stay with Premiere. It works. But now I feel like for me, Premiere has pushed me out. And that thing is, when you start to think about it, you're like, the cost, man. Like, I understand why Adobe has the monthly subscription service. Like, it works. It gives you access to all their platforms. And then that way you don't have to pay this crazy, hefty amounts of money to get each service. Like, it's just so convenient to work within the Creative Cloud suite. Like, sometimes I take photos and I use Lightroom here and there. Like, imagine if I had to buy Lightroom and then only use it once or twice a year. That won't be fun. So I get it. But in terms of cost, you're looking at, I can spend $400 and get the suite, or I can buy some fancy toy. I'm always buying toys, and buy a fancy toy and get it for free as well, and get it as part of the package. So for me, looking at cost, and there's someone who's already on Pro Tools, I'm like, well, I might as well just move. I don't really necessarily need to incorporate my workflow into with Adobe Suite. I can move on. So the last crash that happened in front of a client is what, for me, has pushed me over to where I'm like, I cannot deal with this anymore, man. Like, Premiere is great, but they have to do something about it crashing. I think ultimately also the other thing is, Adobe Premiere is not going anywhere, and clients will determine the type of workflow that you have. But when making these decisions, one thing that I've realized a lot of times here on YouTube and on other platforms is a lot of people are paid. A lot of people make money from these suggestions that they give, that they never truly tell you why, or never really give concrete reasons. For me, I feel like Adobe Premiere is probably the most useful editing software out there, just because of the Adobe Suite, and it's easy to understand. I mean, I know when you get there, you see a lot of buttons, but you don't need all that stuff in Adobe. Like, they just keep adding and not removing, so you end up with a bunch of stuff on the screen, but not necessarily. For me, the most important aspect of anything is just speed, man. Like, you don't have time to be wasting, because a lot of times when you're working on these short projects, you don't have time. These people will be getting into festival and they're just sending you the project last minute. They're like, hey, can you help us fix this? And you're like, okay, again. And it's like, boom, the thing won't work. And before I go, man, I have a gripe with Dropbox. Like, if anybody has a suggestion for me for what's a good cloud platform, file sharing platform, because like Dropbox yesterday also humiliated me, where it just goes, you have exceeded your bandwidth, and you're like, damn, man, we need to work. I need to pass this data to the next person, and then Dropbox is just like, nah, screw you, bruh. I may move to Google Drive, but like, what are your cloud solutions, man? Like, you guys, please help me. If you're watching this video, let me know some suggestions in terms of how do you deal with your file management. Other than that, yeah, I'll be moving to Davinci, and hopefully I'll make a video just talking about my experiences there. It's not gonna be an easy walk, but we'll figure it out.